Welcome to a nourishing midweek lunch hour conversation with Spokane's newsmakers, thought leaders, and popular entertainers. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Welcome to Spokane Talks Live.
It's Wednesday, May 16th. Welcome to Spokane Talks Live today. Two very interesting guests today. There are Spokane Talks contributors. One is Chris Cargill from the Washington Policy Center. We're going to talk about things like the Seattle head tax and so forth, and the negative effect it has on business. And then Michael Cathcart will be here from Better Spokane to talk about the political filings this week. We're about halfway through filing week for Washington State and all the local and statewide races. So join us next on Spokane Talks Live.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi.
Ooh.
This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
To help you be safe, Washington state law requires you to call 811 2 full business days before you plan, for example, to dig, drill, plow, pull from, or pound anything into the ground. Be prepared to provide the operator with the correct address, cross street, and a description of your work. You must mark the dig area with white paint. The operator will inform you of the utilities notified of your impending excavation. Wait for all their marks. Be safe and dig with care.
The economy is getting stronger, banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Welcome. Hope you're having a good day. It's a little overcast outside, but not bad. It's a great time of year. Everything's greening up and the trees are blooming and hay fever is out and all of that. I love going to the Weather Channel and it tells you the pollen count, and there's the little dial on it, and it's just about all the way around, which yeah, you can start to hear it a little bit as you listen. Good to have you here today. And my first guest is one of our Spokane Talks contributors, Chris Cargill from the Washington Policy Center. How are you?
I'm great.
All right, everything going okay?
It is.
Better over here than if you are trying to do business
right.
on the west side of the state.
Yeah.
What are they thinking over there? And it was unanimous.
Yeah.
And what was in unanimous? Because I haven't said what it is.
Right. We're talking about the Seattle head tax, or
Yes.
or jobs tax, maybe is a better term for it. And
Right.
what the Seattle City Council is up to, and you know, you turn around every day and it's something new, and it's really
So
kind
do
of
I understand it?
mind-boggling.
You employ people and provide jobs, and the people are working, so then you get penalized to supposedly help people who don't want to take the initiative to work or provide jobs.
right.
Is that kind of...
Well, I guess that's a very simplistic way to explain it, but yeah, I mean that's essentially it.
All right. Well, interview's over.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
it's just one thing after another.
Yeah.
In Seattle, and it's really having, it's really forcing a lot of people to question whether Seattle has really gone too far this time.
Well, look at what's
It's one
happening.
thing after another.
Yeah.
And you really question whether at one point whether Seattle was going to reach the tipping point.
Yeah.
And it might have reached the tipping point with this one.
Well, and
because of all the things that have been happening over the past couple of weeks. This has been a very turbulent time in the city of Seattle. And, you know, quite frankly, Seattle's been the butt of a lot of jokes
Yes.
with some of the policies that they have adopted. And a lot of us that live on this side of the state have kind of just rolled our eyes and have said, well, that's just Seattle. And,
However,
and so they're kind of crazy in some of the things they've adopted. But now it's getting to the point where a lot of people are getting pretty concerned.
Yes, yes.
Not only because Seattle's an economic driver of our region,
right.
But because some of the things, they get adopted in Seattle, they don't stay in Seattle.
It's kind of like the California philosophy. If it works down there, even if it doesn't work well, then it comes up to Oregon and Washington. Now we deal with what goes on in Seattle,
and it starts to spread.
Yes,
yeah, it starts to spread.
It's like cancer.
And if Seattle, quite frankly, if Seattle collapses, like
there
Detroit
goes the state.
or whether, right, exactly. Yeah. That has a lot of implications on the entire state, and so for people who are not aware of what's been going on in Seattle over the past couple of weeks. They've been having this very fierce debate over this head tax, basically a tax on jobs, the number of people you employ, and the a tax basically on every person that you employ. You employ 100 people, it's a tax on how many people you employ.
Where does it start? At one employee, or
basically it starts on the amount of money that you make. If you make more than $20 million a year in gross revenue,
okay.
So basically
it doesn't mean you're making profit,
right? Exactly.
Right.
You're subject to this tax, and the original proposal was $500 a head or $500 an employee.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about, well, basically we got to tax Amazon essentially. It's been
go after the big guys.
The Amazon tax, but it impacts a lot more than just Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, $20 million in gross revenue is nothing to sneeze about. But it's also, when you're talking about that
but your
type
profit
of revenue,
margin might be 1 or 2%.
You hit $20 million, especially in Seattle, pretty quickly when you're talking about gross revenues. Yeah. So you had a lot of different companies stepping up and saying, wait a second, we can take our business elsewhere. We can take our business over to Bellevue. Yes. We could take our business outside of the Seattle city boundaries and not be subject to this tax. And there's a reason why no other city in the country has this type of tax. Is because it doesn't work. I mean, Chicago implemented a head tax that was very, very low. I mean, I think it was about 1/8, if I remember the statistics correctly, 1/8 of what Seattle is now getting ready to charge, and then they got rid of it.
Yeah.
So because they realized it was not working.
It was putting a damper on things.
Right. Yeah. And so Seattle says, well, we need this revenue to address the homeless problem that is becoming a huge issue in the city of Seattle. Well, they don't mention the fact that they've put a huge increase in the amount of money into homeless programs in the city of Seattle, especially since 2014, and that money has seemed to go out the window. Likewise, King County has done the same thing.
Perhaps government-run programs?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, and Kashama Sawant, who's the Socialist City Council member, and others say they need more government housing in the city of Seattle. More and more government housing.
Let's attract more homelessness.
Well, and that's the concern, is that the more that you do this, the more that it attracts more homelessness in the city of Seattle. So it becomes a vicious circle as well. I think the larger concern is just a lack of accountability. It's not as if Seattle is hurting for tax revenue. Yeah. They certainly aren't. Their budget has gone through the roof.
The other day saying something that the revenues are there.
Right.
It's a matter of what they spend it on or invested in.
Yeah, they certainly are there.
Yeah.
And so, you've had one article after another and commentary on local TV stations as well saying, this has really reached a tipping point in Seattle, where you have Seattle City Council members who are basically just being led in a direction that is not a good direction by a contingent of folks who are basically the socialist alternative.
Yeah, you have it, I want it.
Right, who take over the Seattle City Council meetings, who scream and yell and shout during Seattle City Council meetings. The Seattle City Council meeting this week was, for lack of a better word, a circus.
Yes.
I mean, it was, after every person who got up there was screaming and shouting and yelling. There was no control, quite frankly, of the city council meeting in Seattle.
Not quite that bad here, but we've seen hints of it at times, haven't we?
Well, at least there is somewhat a little bit of a control mechanism put in place where you can't do that type of thing.
Yeah.
But in Seattle, it is just a free-for-all. And there was one quote by a Seattle PI columnist that I think said it all, and that was, "We are a fatigued city."
Yes.
And I think that's a good way to showcase it.
Well, and you've seen the articles recently about the number of people leaving Seattle, and many of them coming to Spokane.
Yeah, they're looking
Look
elsewhere.
at San Francisco. What's happening to the
Yeah.
Bay Area?
Right.
People are leaving.
Yeah.
The jobs are leaving
Yep.
because they've been overtaxed. And
Well,
all these
and
liberal
Amazon
policies.
said very, very clearly that if Seattle moved ahead with its heads tax, it would seriously consider not moving ahead with $7,000 new jobs in downtown Seattle. That is a huge
The
economic
7,000
hit.
new jobs will create all kinds of revenue.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
okay.
So I mean, it's
like they've failed economics 101.
I mean, there was a poll that came out that Cairo TV put out just a couple of days ago. That's the CBS affiliate in
Right.
Seattle. They put out this poll saying that the vast majority of the citizens in Seattle opposed this head tax. So it seems that the only people who want the head tax are these very vocal group of people who show up at the meetings and basically just shout down anyone who disagrees with them.
Well, they might spend more time trying to either get or keep a job, but that's just a personal opinion. Let's talk about, you've got something coming up next week called the Solutions Summit.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, the Solution Summit is where we're going to talk about a number of different issues. One of them is the income tax issue, which of course goes back again to Seattle. They put in place this income tax on high earners. Again, this was pushed forward by one of the groups, was the Socialist Alternative in Seattle, and others. But we'll be discussing the push for an income tax in Seattle, which they say their main goal is to try to take it statewide. So we'll be talking about that. We're also bringing in Mark Janis, who is the Illinois state worker who is fighting to try to make it so that state government workers all across the spectrum do not have to pay union dues, that they have the choice if they want to join a union or not, are not forced to pay union dues. So he'll be coming to Spokane to talk about that. We'll be talking as well.
You bring in some great people.
We try to.
I mean,
certainly.
that and the annual dinner that you do and everything else, you really bring in top-notch people.
Well, Scott Rasmussen is our speaker at lunch. He's the national pollster who's done a lot of polls about all kinds of national issues, but also we'll be taking a close look at where the balance of power sits as we head into the midterm elections. So a lot of great things for people to come and find out about what's
Still
going on.
room to attend?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And how can people sign up?
WashingtonPolicy.org is the website. You can go online, register for the Solutions.
Is there a cost?
It depends on if you want to attend the full day sessions or just the lunch. So
but like
it ranges anywhere
you
from,
guys do, it's always reasonable though.
Yeah, you can go online and check out the different options there.
Great. Well, thank you. Great update. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk with Michael Cathcart. This week is filing week for politicians to earn our trust, if you will, and be elected this November, and even in the primary this August. And today, literally at noon here, we're halfway through filing. We'll talk with Michael right after this.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
To find the right home for you, you'll work with your realtor to compare the properties you're interested in, analyze the market, and figure out a reasonable offer price. And now, here you are, ready to make an offer. Yay, you! Here's how it works. First, you'll complete an offer sheet which your realtor will then present to the owner. Sometimes, a nice note to the owner can help your offer stand out. Butter them up. Tell them how much you love their garden, that it reminds you of gardening with your grandmother as a child. Do not mention you're gonna bulldoze it and put in a pool. The owner may accept the offer, reject it, or counter. It's important to be in close contact with your realtor during the negotiation process so any changes can be reviewed. Your realtor is like your consigliere. and that makes you the Don. Once your offer is finally accepted, there are usually some contingencies that must be met in order to keep the contract alive. Inspections are totally common in real estate transactions. They include termite checks, surveys to determine boundaries, appraisals to determine value for lenders, title reviews, and structural inspections. This stuff is mind-numbingly fascinating. But you know what's even more fascinating? Actually getting your new house.
To help you be safe, Washington state law requires you to call 811 2 full business days before you plan, for example, to dig, drill, plow, pull from, or pound anything into the ground. Be prepared to provide the operator with the correct address, cross street, and a description of your work. You must mark the dig area with white paint. The operator will inform you of the utilities notified of your impending excavation. Wait for all their marks. Be safe and dig with care.
Well, today is government and political discussion, and we talked about some of the things that government is doing, especially in Seattle, with Chris Cargill, and then talked about the Solution Summit that's coming up next week. My guest now is Michael Cathcart, one of our other Spokane Talks contributors, and you're the executive director with Better Spokane.
Better Spokane, that's right.
I love the title because it just says so much.
We're trying to make Spokane better.
Absolutely. Michael, you and I, we're going to talk again next week.
Yes.
After the filing, but we're literally halfway through this week, which is filing week for the primary here in Washington State, sometimes known as the State of Confusion, but Washington State. And you've been following this each day. I noticed Better Spokane and you put out a Facebook update, and I would encourage you, if you haven't, to sign on Facebook because great information, including your newsletter that came out the other day. But where are we? How are things going? Any surprises yet? Let's talk about the surprises, if there are any.
Yeah, there's really not any major surprises.
Okay.
It wasn't known if a Democrat was going to run for either of the commissioner seats.
Okay.
And one has filed against Commissioner French, right?
Okay, right.
So that's the only thing I would really call a surprise.
Okay.
But yeah, beyond that, there's been a lot of stuff that we've expected. People who previously announced that they were running.
Yes.
But there's some really important races that are going to be on the ballot this year, and I think it's important to kind of let people know.
Well, let's talk about
what's
it.
Coming forward.
Let's start, if we can, with mine, which is the 6th district.
The 6th district. Okay.
And because there was some changing of the
Yeah.
chairs, Michael Baumgartner is going to give up his seat, the Senate seat, and run for treasurer of the county. And so Jeff Holey is moving up.
He is.
Wants to run for that spot. And then talk about Jeff and the other candidates there, because I'm most interested in the 6th.
Yeah, for sure. Current Representative Jeff Holey has decided that he's going to seek the Senate seat now that it's open.
Right.
So he is pursuing that. He has a Democrat opponent. Seems to be kind of the typical person talking about healthcare for all and these sorts of things. And so I really expect that race will be similar to races we've seen previously in the 6th, the outcome anyway.
Yeah, honestly, to beat a Republican, it would need to be a strong Democrat, don't you think?
I think you'd have to be a very
conservative Democrat.
You'd have to be a very moderate, very
Yes.
business friendly, and you'd have to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. But not impossible. But it's a tough task to win if you're a Democrat in the 6th. The one seat though that is very interesting to watch is the open House seat.
Yes.
So there's 3 candidates seeking that. All 3 have filed now.
Okay.
You've got Jenny Graham, who's running as a Republican.
Right.
And then you have 2 candidates running as Democrats.
Okay.
One, his name is Ryan Amitu.
Okay.
And, he talks
He's
about...
kind of new to the scene. I don't think I've seen or heard of him before.
Yeah, very, very new. I think he was an organizer for Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
And I think one of his platform positions is talking about, guaranteed full-time employment for laborers. And so he's got some pretty eccentric ideas, I think, as far as Eastern Washington and Spokane goes. And then the other candidate who is kind of expected to be the person who will come through in August is Dave Wilson, who, as we've talked about a couple of times, has run as an independent, now a Democrat. He's switched his allegiance there. So that race I think is shaping up to be very interesting to watch. If if you're passionate about any of those candidates, that's probably one to be involved with.
Okay.
So.
Let's go to the other districts.
Sure. So 7th District, Senator Short now has an opponent, same opponent as last year.
Okay.
Representative Kretz has 2 opponents, an independent and a Democrat.
Okay.
Neither of them are known.
Okay.
And then I believe Representative Maycumber just got an opponent today who filed as well.
Okay. Okay.
So, and again, nothing crazy, nothing.
And that's usually a pretty conservative district.
It's very conservative, yeah.
I mean,
it covers part of Okanagan, Ferry,
Yeah,
Ponderay, Stevens,
Right.
and then half of Spokane
So,
County.
for a game changer, it would really take a major conservative,
Yeah.
well-known, your best buddy at the coffee shop
Absolutely,
person.
yeah.
to
And the incumbents there are so well known, and
Yeah.
they've been in that district forever.
They're your
Everybody
neighbors.
knows them.
Yeah.
Exactly right. 3rd District. So big news coming out of the 3rd District.
Okay.
Dave Lucas has filed against Tim Ormsby.
Okay.
And Dave is a retired lieutenant colonel.
Yes.
Did a lot of work in Afghanistan and Iraq. He's actually the chairman of the Rockwood neighborhood, which drive through that neighborhood and you'll see pretty much a Lisa Brown sign in every yard. So it's very interesting that he's stepping up to challenge Tim Ormsby. So that'll be a very interesting race to watch.
Yeah. Tim is going to run again.
Yep, he's filed
on his record,
and yes, on his.
Yeah, okay. I won't mention his drunk driving. Okay, that wouldn't be fair, probably.
Sure. Well,
okay,
it's out there.
Okay, you just have to read the paper. I mean, come on. Okay. Other races.
Yeah, well, what I think is very interesting is that if you look at the U.S. Senate race, we now have 8 Republicans running.
Yes, what is with this?
I know. It's very interesting. You've got 8 Republicans. You've got 4 Democrats. I think you have a couple of independents and a libertarian who've all filed. So, I mean, it's a free-for-all. There really is no one candidate who has, from what I have seen, the juice to compete with Maria Cantwell.
Yeah.
I think I know a lot of folks are concerned that the top of the ticket in the state could be Mr. Gibson, who's running for that seat, and he's got a controversial background.
Okay.
So I know there's a lot of people concerned about that, but I did have an opportunity to talk with one of the Democrat candidates, actually. His name's Clint Tannehill.
Okay.
And he's a CrossFit gym owner in Seattle, which is how I connected with him.
Okay.
And had a great conversation. He seems to be a pretty moderate Democrat, but very interesting guy. And quite frankly, the only one so far with any sort of signage in Spokane. He's got a couple of signs over there along the Bloomsday route. So
I won't say who, but I got a note, I think it was last night or this morning, from Sulani Madsen, who hosts our Meet the Candidate.
Yeah.
And it was, oh my gosh, look who's running again. Look who we get to interview, like, with the eyes rolling kind of thing. And it's their right. I get it, and so forth. Didn't I even see there's a candidate from California running for
San Diego? Yeah.
And I mean, and apparently they can do that.
You can, actually, yeah, because if you remember, was it 4 or 6 years ago, Dennis Kucinich, who was at the time an Ohio congressman, he had been districted out. He was looking for a new job or a new seat to run for, and he was actually considering running in Seattle for Congress.
Oh, okay.
And he could do that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very interesting how some of those rules work at the federal
Now,
level.
how about other Senate and Rep Washington District? I want to talk about the Lisa Catherine McMorris, but before we get that, are we leaving anything else?
Yeah, well, one thing I really want to make sure
county
we bring up. Yeah, so county level. Currently, most of the jobs are unopposed.
Okay.
The commissioner race is opposed, as is assessor, but there's one that they haven't filed yet, at least when I last looked. But Sheriff Knezovich is about to have an opponent, and some folks may have seen some of the news regarding this. There's going to be, I think, another article in the Inlander tomorrow. So there's a individual who's, I think, a bit eccentric, who has changed his name to Dump Aussie.
Yeah.
Legally changed his name to dumpaussie.com. Yeah. And he's apparently going to file to run against the sheriff. I don't think Aussie could ask for a better opponent. He'll be able to raise a lot of money off of that.
And what I know about this guy and so forth, and what little I know about him, is enough to know that he just really comes with no credibility in the community and so forth.
Yeah, I haven't had any interactions, but I've heard plenty.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So county commissioner, we talked about. Treasurer is Michael, and anyone else?
Nobody's filed yet.
Okay.
So far unopposed.
They got 2.5 days. About.
Yeah. So treasurer, auditor, clerk, and prosecutor are all unopposed at this point.
And for the Mary current Mary Cooney spot. It's Mary Cooney and
it's
Rob
Mary
Chase.
and Rob Chase.
Okay, who is leaving after 2 terms
Right.
As treasurer and running for that seat. He was one of the candidates the local GOP put up for consideration, and then Mary was selected by the governor.
Yeah, the both of them sought the appointment,
Right.
and Mary was the one who was ultimately chosen, and so she's running to retain, and he's challenging her.
Is it Tim Fitzgerald?
Tim Fitzgerald's our current county clerk.
County clerk is running. Any other notables that we're leaving off? Of course, we won't know completely until Friday at
we'll know
4:30.
Friday, so we'll have a more in-depth rundown, I think, next week when I come back. But so far, like I said, the biggest surprise or unexpected filing was this gal who's running against Al French.
Yes.
And she seems to have some pretty, I'd say a little bit more out there views. Her website talks about wanting to fight climate change and some of these things, which really is not the role of a county commissioner. But I think some of the
well, it's not the role of the city council either, but that doesn't stop them.
That's right. And I'll tell you, just as a side note, if you paid attention to the open forum at City Hall, you'll notice that there was a very organized effort to talk about climate change related issues. And typically, if you look back over the last several years, that sort of thing is what precedes the council taking action on an issue, right? They rally the troops, they come out, they talk about it in open forum. They kind of
look at all the support we have.
Yeah, they create this community conversation, and then they pursue some sort of
a reason to vote yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So that tends to happen quite a bit.
Okay, let's talk about the big elephant in the room,
which is
the Kathy McMorris, Lisa Brown campaign.
Yeah.
Now there's actually a third person running, but the reality is that person will be eliminated in the primary unless something radical happens.
Crazy happens.
It's really a Kathy Lisa campaign.
It is, and I'll tell you, I think by the time we get to the end of this race, I'm not sure. I think everybody in this community will have taken a side.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, one way or the other.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I don't think there's gonna be a lot of agnostics in that race, and so and part of it I think is a bandwagon thing. You're gonna just jump on the bandwagon that your friends and family are, regardless of policies.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, we see a positive outcome there, but the interesting thing there is if you go up to the South Hill, I mean, it's just covered in Lisa signs.
Are those signs legal? Are those signs legal because they don't have the D on them?
Yes, at the federal level, there's different rules.
Okay.
So federal has very different rules.
Okay.
You can be a little.
I
bit
wondered
more,
about that. That's why
you can be more simplistic with that stuff at the federal level.
Okay. Well, and clearly, I think they're out there early.
Yeah.
Which is what you would do as an opponent, an outsider.
Well, it's interesting. If you look at some of these local events, like, for example, Bloomsday.
Yeah.
Bloomsday was owned by Lisa, but the Junior Lilac Parade was owned by Kathy. Okay. And it's interesting, how they're both, pursuing these.
Hoop Fest coming, and who knows, 4th of July.
Yeah, that's right.
And so forth. Clearly, Lisa will do better for her campaign in the city of Spokane area. And clearly, Kathy will do better outside the city of Spokane.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to, my belief is that Kathy will win, but not by the margin she has before.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a close race.
Yeah.
There's
much closer than before.
There's no doubt about it. And the amount of attention, both locally and nationally, that this race is getting is driving a lot of that too. I mean, I think obviously there is community interest, and so that drives news stories. But I think the news stories are also driven because the more interesting the race gets, the more papers are sold, et cetera, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's all kind of a...
Well, and in some ways, I always try to look at it from this standpoint. It's not bad for our local economy because these campaigns are going to be spending some serious bucks. I look back 2 years or 4 years ago, and Kathy's campaign was, I'm giving round numbers, I'm not going to be exact, around $1.8 to $2 million for a campaign. And the opponent, I think, around $500,000, maybe something like that. I think you're looking at both Kathy and Lisa spending $2 to $3 million, well, close to $3 million each, and the TV and radio stations and the newspaper will do well because of that, and so forth. So they'll, sometimes, you're going to be so tired of all the ads, but it also helps the economy and employs a lot of people too.
That's right.
So you got to look, we got to pull something positive out of this, right?
Yeah. I it'll be very interesting to see how Lisa's fundraising holds up.
Yes.
I think it's expected that Kathy obviously has because she's been in Congress as long as she has. She's got a built-in fundraising base.
The incumbent always does.
Absolutely.
I don't care what party.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Lisa has been away from politics for a little bit.
Yes.
So that obviously has an impact. But she also came out and said that she wasn't going to take any PAC money.
Yeah.
Although she is still taking union money, but she's not taking PAC money. And so,
what's the difference? Give me a break.
Yeah. Well. Yes. Okay. So anyway, it'll just be very interesting to see if her fundraising continues the way it's been going. I mean, with all of the
Lisa can't continue to just be on the $100, the $50, the $20 donations. She's going to need some serious dollars.
Yeah.
And so that's got to come from somewhere, and we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting race.
It is.
I think just to watch. Michael, have we left anything out?
Well, I'd just like to one other thing on a different note. So you were talking to Chris earlier about the head tax issues in Seattle, and obviously that's something that we've been watching very closely.
Do we see that coming or a try here?
Well, here's the thing, and I don't think people understand. We already have a head tax in Spokane. We've had it for quite a while.
The B&O?
No, we don't have a B&O, a local B&O. We have
a business tax.
We have an actual employee head tax.
Yes.
It's much smaller than Seattle, what they just passed, but we do have one. And so we have a little poll on our website, and I'm just curious if folks want to answer that poll and say whether or not they think Spokane should keep the head tax or whether or not they think we should eliminate the head tax that we have. Because as Chris pointed out, regardless of how much the tax is, it's still a tax on jobs.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to.
And one of the things that we're seeing nationally and in the state is more people are getting employed. That's solving some of our social issues and so forth.
Yeah.
And let's be careful that we don't take advantage of the fact that good things are happening and just go out and slam everybody with more taxes.
Right.
And
in fact, there's a great...
Because if you do nothing, you'll have more revenue.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. There's a great news story. We posted it on our Facebook page, so please go to Facebook, check out Better Spokane if you haven't done that already.
Right.
But there's a story coming out, I think it was Como News, and they're talking about a couple of Albertsons and Safeway stores in Seattle that are closing.
Yes.
And they said, okay, well, it's not specifically because of the head tax, but if you read it, they actually say that it is because they have seen a 10% increase in expenses due to the pile-on of regulations in Seattle.
Yeah, and it's like one more thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do not want to see that in Spokane. That is the last thing we want to see.
Absolutely not. And when things are starting to really do well in terms of the economy and the jobs and all that, last week we had Todd Milkey here talking about the big box thing going out by the airport, and of course he could not say it was Amazon.
Right.
But by virtue of elimination, you kind of have to assume that.
Kind of expected.
Let's not find a way to
let's not
discourage that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, okay, we want the jobs and the variety. I think I read somewhere 1,900, 2,000 jobs for that.
Yeah,
that's serious. That's a serious number.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, there is a considerable number of jobs that Amazon could be bringing in.
Yeah, great. Michael, thank you for watching out for all of us and what Better Spokane does. Again, the website is
betterspokane.org. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please go do that today. We're trying to send that out every other week to every week. It just depends on what's happening.
Yeah.
And then check out our Facebook page. Like I said, we've got that poll there about the head tax. Curious to know your thoughts on that. And just kind of watch what we're doing, and we'd love to have you supporting us.
And you're back in that seat on Tuesday as we evaluate what happens by this Friday, right?
That's right.
That'll be kind of fun because it'll all be done by then, and we'll know what's happening.
Maybe we can make a few little early predictions, too.
Okay, yeah. Yes. In fact, on Tuesday, our invitations go out to all the candidates to invite them in for Meet the Candidate.
Yeah.
Thank you for Better Spokane for stepping up. We've got
absolutely.
We've got several really great sponsors, including GSI and We Believe We Vote, and you guys, and Ponderosa Republican Women, and that's how we can bring these 10-minute sit-downs with the candidates, so that you, as a potential voter, have a chance to see who these people are and see and hear them and so forth, and kind of the video voters pamphlet. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And we're going to say goodbye for today. We'll see you next Tuesday right here with Michael. Next week. Have a good day.
Spokane Talks Live is produced in Spokane, Washington by Spokane Talks Online, LLC, which is solely responsible for its content. To recommend a guest or topic, or to see this program again, please visit our website, SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Join us next Wednesday, noon, for another nourishing conversation on Spokane Talks Live.